So we'll have our next speaker. And this is María Teresa Compte Grau. María Teresa is from Spain. She holds a PhD in political science and sociology. Marie has over the years developed a professional career in 3 areas, namely teaching and academic management, media, and social action. Her social commitment has led her to further train in victimology, counseling, and gender violence. María Teresa is the founder of 2 civil associations whose mission is the promotion and protection of human rights. Since 2017, she has been working on victimization, specifically in sexual abuse in religious institutional context. She is the director of the Betania Association for Care and Support of Victims of Intra-Ecclesial Sexual Abuse. María Teresa has researched and published widely in the area of sexual abuse in the church. Marie, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. It's an honor to be here today with all of you and to share reflections, experiences, commitments, and hopes. Thank you to the entire organizing committee and to those who have taken care of all the logistics. Thank you, Father Zollner, for your determination and trust. And thank you so much, Mary, to share with you life, share commitments, and faith. She's a friend of mine. Well, I would like to share with you the voices of 3 Spanish women who have been victims of psychological, spiritual, and sexual violence in a relationship marked by an imbalance of power within Catholic institutional context in Spain. Spain exists, and it's not different. I will focus on 2 main issues: protection factors that had helped in their recovery process, and spiritual recovery, especially in their relationships with church and experience of God. Their names are fictitious because they have asked me to do this, and I think it's very important to protect the identity of victims. I will call them Mary, Martha, and Margaret. I met Mary during an academic research. Martha and Margaret because they came to Betania seeking guidance and support. Mary was between 16 and 18 years old when the abuse took place. She was intelligent, committed, very happy, and she dreamed of becoming a consecrated woman. She was part of a small group of women who shared parish activities with a young priest. All of them were victims of a devastating violence process. Mary reported her abuser, but the bishop advised the parents not to press criminal charges. Following the canonical process, the abuser was defrocked. But before, Mary was expelled from the parish and the youth movement of which she was a member. Martha was between 26 and 36 years old when the abuse took place. She was not engaged in any pastoral project. She met her perpetrator while she was a master's and doctoral student. He was her professor, and he offered an employment contract. She denounced her perpetrator when she was 40. He was punished. But after 6 months, he decided that he was not guilty of anything. He said that the woman who had reported him had enjoyed all that had happened, and he had the right to return to his life. Martha reported him again. He was punished again, and the case was resolved without participation of the perpetrator through a restorative process. A year later, the priest had found himself another parish. Nobody controlled him. Margaret was a highly capable woman, PhD in humanities and teacher. She was over 40 years old when the second victimization process took place. Her first abuser, a priest who was a psychologist, involved her in a false therapeutic process that mixed spirituality with therapy. She met her second abuser during a spiritual retreat and lasted for more than 17 years. She remembered that from the very beginning, the circle close to the priest tried to convince her that he was a saint, a very intelligent person, and of great kindness. Mary, Martha, and Margaret are women who suffer psychological, spiritual, and sexual abuse. 3 different dimensions of abuse of power perpetrated by 4 priests who abused the existing power imbalance to pressure their consciences, break down their protective walls, cross all the boundaries of relationship of trust, and cause them harm. Mary was very young. She was 19 when she spoke. She had not internalized the stigma of being a temptress, but she felt guilt. What the priest had done to her was wrong, contrary to the Catholic morality. He was a priest, and priests are good. Therefore, she was the bad one. Despite her emotional distress, Mary confronted her abuser and wanted to know why he had hurt she so badly. And he replied, "Because I saw other priests do it." Martha had been silent for more than 10 years. She had internalized the guilt and accepted that there was no way out. Violence is a prison, and she was a prisoner until the day her abuser died. She survived thanks to her work, her willpower, and her determination. God was her ally, even though she lived feeling condemned. Margaret didn't know that she had supported violence till he met her second perpetrator. And this was devastating for something like her, who had no family to turn to. Her family was hell. Martha and Margaret have undergone a longer and more complex recovery process because they both remained silent for many years. Martha completed the process 11 years ago. Margaret is now in the midst of recovery process, and she's waiting for the church to inform her of the progress of the canonical complaint she filed several months ago, and I repeat, several months ago. Both women have experienced this recovery process as a task, requiring determination, perseverance, and discipline. Violence incapacitates, but victims are not incapable. Mary, Martha, and Margaret believed they couldn't manage their lives, but their therapist served as mirrors and helped them stop feeling powerless and embark on a conscious journey toward empowerment. For all three, telling their stories was crucial. They faced trauma, looked evil in the face, reclaim their memories, integrate them into their lives. In doing so, they were able to report their abusers. Oh, sorry, I've lost my... Mary, Martha, and Margaret are women of faith, but the abuse has forced them to redefine her faith. Mary had to accept that her diocese expelled her. She fought to find another place of worship because she wanted to share her faith and her life with other young Catholic people, travel to World Youth Day, and continue going to summer camps. She has achieved it. She studied theology, psychology, and family therapy. As she says, that has helped to see priests in a different light. Martha fought to reclaim the spaces that her abuser had contaminated. It was a conscious and very difficult process because good and evil were constantly intertwined. She worked hard to kill the God her abuser had shown her, and she had to let God's love seduce her in a radically different way than her abuser has tried to seduce her using God's name. Margaret has a very intimate relationship with God and is a woman of enormous mystical depth. She did not grow up in a religious family. That's why, as she herself explains, she always sought spiritual and religious guidance to help her to feel secure on her journey of faith. Her two perpetrators took advantage of that. But God, she says, has always saved her life. Today, she never enters a Catholic church or shares her experience of faith with anyone other than women. She wants nothing to do with priests, and sometimes she says she doesn't know how much longer she will remain Catholic. She asked the church for help in reporting her abuser, but they deceived her. Mary and Margaret suffered sacramental abuse. Their abusers sexualized Christian love in the form of false mysticism, something that borders on heresy in a manner similar to that described in Cécile Hoyot's book, The Betrayal of the Father, and in the style of the Philip brothers. Martha suffered a form of psychological and sexual violence very similar to that suffered by victims of gender-based violence. In all three cases, the sacrament of reconciliation was key. On the one hand, because it was used to abuse, and the other, because it was a mechanism for silencing victims. They didn't fall in love with their abusers, but they did suffer manipulation from those who played with the idea of the romantic love, based on a spiritual seduction that generates moral confusion and cognitive distortion. No one of the three have focused their recovery on forgiveness. All three believe there can be no forgiveness without acknowledgment of guilt. They don't hate or believe in revenge, but they don't want anyone to ask for forgiveness. What they do ask for is recognition, justice, and solidarity. Power is always relational, but here we are talking about power that is used to intimidate and to harm within sacramental culture. In the Catholic tradition, pastoral ministries, especially the priestly ministry, are the symbol of the sacred and of God. In the case of priests, they have in their hands the sacraments of the Eucharistic and reconciliation. Their power, in our tradition, is not only symbolic, but real. Victimization process is complex because it involves many people and many factors. The same happened in the recovery process. No one can walk the path of recovery alone. In this sense, I believe that it would be great for victims if our church could seriously consider facilitate a professional and independent system to recovery and reparation according to a paradigm of justice and solidarity that is consistent with the Christian anthropological vision. Focus attention on the rights and freedoms of adult women and overcome the idea of vulnerability as an identity. No woman is vulnerable only because she's a woman. Leave behind the culture of suspicion on women. I'm sure that's the most necessary and most urgent, because sin is human, not feminine. Adoption of ethical standards of conduct for ministers, men and women, including sanctions. And increase the number of women in services providing assistance to women victims. One last thing. In reference to the founder of this university that welcomes us. In the autobiography of San Ignacio de Loyola, it said that one night in 1523, in Gaeta, here in Italy, Ignacio defended two women, mother and daughter, whom some men had tried to force themselves on them. Ignacio, full of impetus as a soldier of Christ, said to the men, must this be suffered? San Ignacio did not remain silent, but spoke out. He acted as an upstander and not as a bystander. On behalf of Mary, Martha, and Margaret, thank you very much.